The Colts should trade for Bengals all-pro pass rusher Trey Hendrickson. True or false? We're answering more of your questions today on the show. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Colts, your daily Indianapolis Colts podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right. Thanks for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. This is your daily podcast covering your Indianapolis Colts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am Jake Arthur of horseshoehuddle.com, your resident credentialed media member for the site. And today we're doing a little bit of a spillover episode. We did a Q&A episode yesterday, and you guys sent us so many questions that we wanted to go ahead and give you another today for those that kind of hit the cutting room floor yesterday. And you got some good ones. We're kind of keeping them on theme today, and it's a lot of questions about player acquisition still. Talking about free agents still that might fit the Colts at positions of need that they kind of, I don't want to say whiffed on in the draft, but maybe weren't able to land the ones that they really wanted. Who is still out there free agent-wise? A couple situations for guys still on the Colts. But most importantly, the Trey Hendrickson saga continues for the Cincinnati Bengals. And so let's just kind of break it down and get to what is the latest, because there was some more news today. So basically, Trey Hendrickson has had 17 and a half sacks in each of the last 2 years, led the entire NFL last season, has the most in the NFL over the last 2 years. The guy wants a new deal. He's about to play for about $16 million for this season, which is the last season of his current deal. And that is just not enough for a player of his caliber. Obviously, players who are playing at that high of a level should be rewarded to be of market value. So that's pretty much well below what a player of him would be worth now. So naturally, he would like a new deal. The Bengals have not been willing to really meet him at the number he would like. He reportedly, the number, 30 million per year has always been floating around there. I don't even know if it's quite that much. He has said he doesn't need to be the highest paid pass rusher in the NFL. He just wants to be compensated a little more fairly than he is. And the Bengals are really not even communicating with them anymore in terms of contract negotiations. They basically said, what we've offered, you should be happy with that. So it seems like they're pretty far apart. Hendrickson did show up today for Bengals offseason workouts just to speak to the media and kind of address the situation a little bit. He said, it does feel personal and it's not going well between him and the Bengals. But the relationship is not irreparable at this point. But he did request a trade earlier in the offseason. And then so naturally, we've talked about it a little bit here at Locked On Colts. You guys have asked about it most of the time when we've asked for questions for these Q&A episodes. So until there's a resolution there for Hendrickson and his situation, I think it still bears mentioning. Now, there's a couple other teams that always get brought up when it comes to potential trade suitors. I hear the Commanders a lot. Of course, the Eagles, anytime there's a big move to be made. The Chiefs as well. Those are always obviously the two biggest fish. But the Colts have a couple guys that no other teams have. They have a couple other connections to Hendrickson, and that's Lou Anarumo, who was Hendrickson's defensive coordinator in Cincinnati for the last 4 or so years. And then they also have Charlie Partridge, the defensive line coach that Hendrickson had in college. So the Colts have two strong connections to Hendrickson. And my understanding for the Colts, monetarily, I think they would find a way to make it work. Like if they really wanted Trey Hendrickson, I think they can make that new contract work. However, I've been poking around a little bit, in the last couple of days it seems like every couple weeks or so, there's new Trey Hendrickson stuff coming through. So just in what I've been gathering, it sounds like the Bengals still want whatever the equivalent to a first-round pick would be for Hendrickson. The problem with that, Hendrickson, incredibly productive still, but at 30 years old, another team is still going to have to give him a high-priced multi-year contract. So with that being said, I think a first-round pick is probably a little bit too rich for the Colts. the contract, I think they could swing. They would make it happen. But if the price comes down at all for the Bengals, maybe the Colts could swing that. I just don't see them paying a 30-year-old player that much money over a multi-year contract and giving up a first-round pick for it. Not that he wouldn't necessarily be worth it, but that's a valuable resource that they want to use to kind of add a young piece into the nucleus that they're trying to build here. So that last question came from Ginger Sports Fan on Twitter. He said, it sounds like the Hendrickson negotiations aren't going well. If he ended up in Indy, how would he fit into our edge room? Whose snaps would he be displacing? So also a shout out to Ben Baby of ESPN, the Bengals reporter. Most of the stuff I'm gathering is from reading what he's put out there. So Ben's doing an awesome job covering this. So let's just say hypothetically the Colts did trade for Hendrickson. I think obviously he would start, but I think the other starter would probably still be Kwity Paye. That's hard to say. I mean, that's a guy who we know the Colts trust to be a starter. There's zero question there. I expect Laiatu Latu to be the other starter opposite of Paye this year, but at the same time, that's someone who would be earning a starting spot for the first time in their career. So I think the smart money would say it would be Hendrickson and Paye as the two starting edge rushers. And I mean, Latu would be the next guy up. He'd be the third pass rusher out there. So I don't think his snaps would decrease drastically. But of course, Samson Ebukam would then become pretty expendable. Tyquan Lewis as well. Of course, I've heard Kwity Paye be brought up by fans as someone the Colts could send to Cincinnati in a deal like that. But Cincinnati would have to pay Kwity Paye as well. Obviously not what Trey Hendrickson would be asking for, but that's just another guy who is going into the final year of his deal that they would have to pony up for. So we'll see. I'm not going to call it completely dead, but I will call it unlikely, so to speak. This next one from Taicho53 on Twitter. Who's your favorite Colts fit of the free agents still on the market at offensive line, linebacker, and safety? So for offensive linemen, I'm not really looking for like certified dudes, basically. Like I don't necessarily want a guy who you plug in and you perhaps have to promise them a starting spot or an opportunity to start. I'm just kind of looking for interior offensive linemen right now that can provide really good depth and competition if the guys at the top aren't really cutting it. So a couple I think make a lot of sense. Daniel Brunskill, formerly of the 49ers and Titans, and then Tristan Colon Castillo, formerly of the Ravens and Cardinals. Those are two guys who they don't go into it as like the full-time starter, but they do both wind up playing starting snaps quite a bit. They both seem to get a handful of starts at minimum each year. They've played a lot of snaps. They played really good football as well. And they have that flexibility between center and guard. So those are two who I really like, two good options. At linebacker, Kaiser White is the name I've brought up pretty much every time. Super productive player, and I don't think is so good that you immediately have to usurp Jalen Carlies. But I think he'd be good competition for Carlies nonetheless. And between Carlies and Kaiser White, I know Lou Anarumo doesn't want to use a ton of linebackers, but those guys both have skills that, you know, you could do multiple things with them. Historically, Kaiser White's been decent in coverage, but is coming off a year that was pretty rough in that department. But I still think, you know, he's not done in his career. I still think he offers some versatility for you. Shaq Thompson is another one who was let go by the Panthers. That's about a 31-year-old guy who's played a lot of good football in his career. And then Chris Barnes is another one who is formerly of the Cardinals as well. He's someone who, kind of like the offensive lineman I mentioned, not a guy that's really going to threaten to be a starter, but has played some good football. And if your guys go down, which the Colts are dealing with vacancies at linebacker right now, then he could certainly go in and give you some decent play. And then at safety, I think you're looking at Jordan Whitehead and Quandre Diggs are two guys that could take the ball away. Chuck Clark is just a good, solid veteran presence. Could do a little bit of everything, good in the box, decent coverage. And then Von Bell, that's just basically a communicator for Lou Anarumo. Just a coach out there in the locker room, essentially. I wouldn't imagine he would play a whole lot. The Colts wouldn't really need him to, but he is a guy who knows and understands Lou Anarumo and his schemes and his defenses and can help communicate that. And we've seen how valuable in the past it's been for the Colts to get a veteran voice in the secondary to help kind of develop guys and bring them along and make them better players. So that is a pretty low risk, high reward move, I think, that they could make. So guys, we are not done. We still have plenty of questions to get to regarding player acquisition, who's still out there, and really what's going on with the Colts. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. You guys are probably Pacers fans if you're watching us here, so that is not news to you. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it super easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. They've got the player props, they've got performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever now to play smart and win big. I think for all of us, we could say that following Tyrese Halliburton has been absolutely fascinating throughout the playoffs, not just this series. Betting on him and Donovan Mitchell has just kind of been a bettor's dream. They give you something to shoot for every minute of the game, it feels like. The Pacers are currently up 3-1 in this series, but the Cavs are 7.5-point favorites in Game 5 on FanDuel. So do with that what you will. Think that one over. I think the Pacers are just chronically slept on, and it doesn't feel right. So throw your money out there and tell them what you think. Are you new to FanDuel? It's the perfect time to sign up. Just head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets back. So make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, much more to get to here, guys. All right, so the next one from Sack of Shots on Twitter. Are the Colts interested in bringing in a free agent safety, linebacker, or pass rusher? So obviously we talked about the safeties and linebackers, but as far as pass rusher goes, I think that makes sense because, I mean, Trey Hendrickson isn't the only player out there who could potentially be had. There are some actual free agents out there. Some that I think make some sense: Preston Smith, Zadarius Smith, DeMarcus Walker, and Dennis Gardeck. So Preston Smith and Zadarius Smith can give you a good bit of pass rush juice out there. Some 30-something defensive ends, edge rushers who have been there and done that. They're more rotational guys. I don't know if I would throw them out there right now with the Colts. Maybe if someone gets hurt, like if Samson Ebukam is just not coming along how you wanted it to, maybe you go to a guy like that. DeMarcus Walker, I think. Personally, I think he's always been pretty solid against the run throughout his career. And it looks like the Colts have been kind of intentional about getting some defensive linemen who are pretty solid against the run. So that makes a lot of sense. And Dennis Gardeck is a guy you've maybe never even heard of. But this guy, he's got some good ball tape out there. Another Cardinals defender that I mentioned. The guy's he does some off-ball linebacker stuff, really good pass rushing juice. So definitely a good option out there if the Colts are looking at edge rusher. All right, next one from Cheesy Steve on Twitter. After the draft, how much more competitive did the AFC South become? I would say the AFC South is fairly more competitive now. I'm a lot more confident in the Titans quarterback situation. I still think they've probably finished last in the division. But I don't think they're as chaotic and bad as they were. I still question plenty of areas on their roster. Like, defensively, they're kind of trying to figure some things out after some swings and misses last year. They are still investing in like the oldest receiver core ever. I don't know why they keep doing that year after year. It's not working. So we'll see how it goes for them. But I like Cam Ward. I think that's a good one. We'll see what that rushing attack can be, what that offensive line can be. So I have some questions, but the Texans as well. That should be the Colts' main competition at the top for the AFC South. I still wonder about that offensive line. I think they probably should have poured more resources into it to make it like ironclad, and to the fact that CJ Stroud doesn't have to worry about anything. I still think there are some what ifs or question marks going on there on the offensive line. I mean, at least their passing game is going to be incredible. They invested heavily in weapons for Stroud, but it would have been nice to maybe see them prioritize his protection a little bit more. And then the Jaguars, I can't really explain how they seem to go downhill. They had the division title a couple years ago, and then it's just never really looked the same since. Obviously, injuries play a big role. As long as Trevor Lawrence is healthy, I obviously like what they've done, in the draft and with some free agent moves, but we'll see. I don't think any of these teams are going to run away with it. I think it will be super competitive for all four teams against each other, but I do like the Colts and the Texans atop of things to be battling for it, even as late as week 18 into the season. The next one from Nate on Twitter: what's the level of panic we should be at with the recent news of Zaire Franklin's ankle surgery, and who are some possible free agents that we could sign if it came to it? So I mentioned the free agents at the top, but we can all vent about this linebacker thing here for a minute. So, we come into the offseason with that being a concern. Some questions got answered. EJ Speed goes elsewhere, which unfortunately that's a little bit of addition by subtraction because him and Zaire Franklin together is just not good complementary football. So Jalen Carlisle being the other starter, that's perfectly fine. However, he's still nursing his shoulder injury, and he's not been available out there during the offseason program. And then come to find out, Zaire Franklin had to get his ankle cleaned up, and he's going to be out for the offseason program. And now both of these guys are hopefully going to be back by training camp. So you take a position which was, after the draft, arguably your biggest need, and now we find out the two starters who you said, we're fine, we have these two guys, though both of those players are not even going to be out there until maybe training camp. It seems a little bit of overconfidence. It seems there's always one position each offseason where this is the case. So easily feels like linebacker this year. We'll see how it goes. I mean, it might be much ado about nothing and everything looks fine as the season goes. But I think there is very valid reason for concern as to what are they doing and why are they so confident that everything is going to be fine here with this lack of depth. They haven't really addressed this thing. EJ Speed left, obviously. That was good in terms of the starting lineup, but that was a 1,000-snap guy for you. And Grant Stewart was a guy who was your primary third linebacker last year. You haven't brought in anyone in either spot to replace them. You're just hoping the guys you had step up. So we'll see how it goes. I am skeptical. I don't think it's definitely going to fail. I like Jalen Carlisle and I like Zaire Franklin. I think together they make a nice duo, but I definitely am curious if they're overconfident in the situation. But we'll see. I know Lou Anarumo is going to use a ton of defensive backs out there, and that may mask a little bit of what the effect of the linebacker group can be, but you're still going to play with linebackers. I don't know. The players who are on the field have to be good, decent players is all I'm saying. And so you're really kind of banking on health at this position, and health is never a guarantee in the NFL. So we'll see. And then the last one here from KTF84 on Blue Sky: what do you think Riley Leonard's ceiling is if the Colts have to turn to him at any point beyond year one? So I like this question. I think some people get it a little bit misconstrued that when a team drafts a player, no matter where in the draft, that it's a potential starter or the team hopes they start at some point. It's just not really the case. Most guys on day 3, especially around 5, 6, 7 picks, they're very much role players. So right now, I think the immediate vision for Riley Leonard is to replace Sam Ehlinger as the QB3. He gives them a guy that can execute quick RPO stuff in the passing game. He's a tough runner in the run game. He's smart. He's a leader. You don't have really anything to worry about there. You're not worried about what he looks like as a starter because he's probably never going to start for you at all. I think the long-term vision for him is to perhaps be that backup quarterback. Again, you hope to never see your backup quarterback. But I think it's pretty good logic that both Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones won't still be on the roster next season, 2026. So you're going to take at least one of those away probably. Well, now you have this kid in Riley Leonard who you've developed for a year, who has a lot of intangibles and things you like about him, who, okay, he can step up. Who's your starter going to be? I don't know, but we at least have Leonard here as a backup to maybe compete for the starting spot. Probably not, but he can execute everything you want him to as the backup. If he absolutely has to play, Shane Steichen can figure something out kind of from the Gardner Minshew school of football with the heavy use of RPO stuff, and Riley Leonard can run the ball way more than Gardner Minshew could. So I think long-term plan is backup for him. Now, they do make it seem like they think he's got a whole nother level he can get to. Certainly he has the work ethic and leadership, but I mean, what's the talent look like? I don't think he's shown enough as a passer to have a lot of confidence there that he's going to be a starter someday. But like, I'm not mad at him being the long-term backup for the Colts. I think they could have done much worse. There were other guys in the draft I liked more, but like, this wasn't a bad move. I see exactly what the Colts are shooting for here. He gets the stamp of approval from Phillip Rivers, who we know was a workaholic who eats, sleeps, and breathes football. So he gets that stamp of approval. I know from talking to Leonard, he's a great leader, and from talking to others around him who have played for him, he's a great leader. There's really no risk to it. And then the high point is you have a backup quarterback who, again, you hope to never see play. So it's a decent move. It's just kind of a blip on the radar. I don't think it's super impactful. It would be nice if he has more of a ceiling to be, go beyond being a backup. But I see him being a nice, adequate backup in the NFL. And I mean, if the Colts can ever figure out what's going on at starter over the next several years, then cool. I think Leonard is a nice guy to have in the quarterback room to back up whoever that starter is. So thank you guys for your questions. We'll probably do this again soon because you guys always respond in an awesome way and you flood the mentions with questions exactly how we want it. So thanks for making us your first listen of the day. Now for your next listen, check out Locked On NFL Scouting. The NFL draft is over, but the roster moves and news never stop. Hosts Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino will make you the most informed NFL fan this offseason. Find Locked On NFL Scouting on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you guys want to become a Locked On Colts insider and chat with us directly, ask us your questions whenever you want about whatever you are wondering. Follow the link in our show notes. If you don't already, follow at Locked On Colts, at Jake Arthur NFL, and at Zach Hicks2 on Twitter. We're also on TikTok and Instagram as well. Those are always growing really well. So thank you guys for your good response there. And of course, be sure to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We would love those ratings and reviews as well. It's how we get more eyes and ears on the show. And with that, we will see you guys tomorrow when they announce this schedule.